print meeting digital. So how we can drive leads with integrated marketing strategies. First, a bit of an intro into myself and Helen. So I'm Steph from Wagada Digital. In my role as digital marketing account manager, I get to work with many different clients across various sectors, which definitely keeps me busy. It's my job really to work with clients to understand their goals and then to put together strategies and how we can achieve those. I really do love my role. I think it's the possibility to tap into different tactics that makes it so interesting and opens up room for creativity. So I think that's one of the key things today, is to really talk about how we can explore different tactics across both print and digital to strengthen what we're trying to achieve. And yeah, thank you again for being here with Helen and I. Hopefully there's some good takeaways from what we go through. Over to you, Helen.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name's Helen. I work at a business called Precision Proco. I'll explain what we do in a couple of minutes' time. I've been working in marketing for 20 plus years now, and before you say it, I know I don't look that old, or I wish I didn't, but over 20 years now. My background has very much always been print marketing, and recently working closely with Wagada, I've been exploring more about how our business can use digital marketing. So hopefully I'm in a really good position today to talk to you about that unique, what I would call power couple, that is print and digital marketing working together.
Brilliant. Thank you, Helen. So a little bit about Wagada Digital. We're an award-winning digital marketing agency established for 12 years. Lovely picture of the team there. So we're across 3 different sites. That's the original site, if you like, in St Albans, where it all began. And then we grew into Cheltenham, and now we have a central London office in Soho. That's actually where I'm based. And we're a full-service marketing agency with a team of experts who specialise in many different areas of marketing, such as employer branding, web development, strategy, and HubSpot. So yeah, we're really working with clients across, from the start of their journey at that strategizing point to then really delivering those plans to execution, and then monitoring the performance to see how we're getting results and what we can do to shift and change that. And we work across a broad range of clients, and that's B2B and B2C. So yeah, keeps things interesting, which we like.
Okay, and I work for a business called Precision Proco. So we're one of the UK's largest print service providers. We have 4 production sites across the UK. I'm based in our Sheffield site. And we also have businesses or production sites in Dagenham, Wembley, and Sunderland. So at Precision Proco, we specialise very much in data-driven marketing solutions, direct mail, point of sale, print on demand, printed marketing solutions, books and merchandise. So a whole raft of printed marketing materials that we can talk about today. Very recently, we've been working with brands such as DFS, Hillary's Blinds, Amex, Photobox. So across a range of different sectors. So hopefully I can share with you today lots of different strategies across lots of different sectors.
Thank you, Helen. So a little bit about what we'll be covering. Some of those key elements. So why integrate digital and print into your marketing strategies, looking at how we can blend both of those elements for success. We've got some great examples in here of kind of brands that have done that well. Then looking at really how you can leverage data to inform marketing decisions. And then, of course, some future trends, kind of looking at what we think could be coming up within those spaces. Cool.
Okay, so let's kick right off. Why integrate digital and print? Yeah, so I guess from our experience, when we talk to customers, everybody really wants the same thing. So everyone wants to find, win, and keep customers, yeah. And when they keep customers, they want them to be advocates, and they want to gain lifetime value from those clients. But it's becoming increasingly difficult to do those things, because if we all want the same thing, and we're all using the same tools and the same channels, it's becoming increasingly difficult to be heard. I think we've all heard about digital noise and digital overwhelm. If you just want to move on to the next slide, Steph, please. And customers or consumers talking about how actually they're almost fighting against that digital overwhelm now. 49% of respondents to a recent two-side survey stated that they felt they spent too long on digital devices. So by focusing solely on digital channels, perhaps we're going to struggle to be heard now amongst our customer base. So our answer to this? Well, our answer is, why don't we use print combined with digital to supercharge our efforts? Yeah, we believe that print, and specifically personalized print, can help us cut through that digital noise and allow us to be heard again by our consumers.
Thank you, Helen. So you wanted to start off really, I guess, going back to basics a little bit. So as marketers, we've probably heard of most of these things on the screen right now in relation to digital marketing and might even be utilizing already in our current strategies and plans. Essentially, each of these elements help us to connect with new and existing customers through online channels. And that could be at different stages in their journey down that funnel, but it's really utilizing these as these touch points really at the right time so that they can have the impact and results that we want. And with anything, especially in digital, it's ever evolving. So we're really seeing this develop more and more over time. So I thought it'd be interesting to highlight some of those key developments that have happened within digital marketing. Actually, when I looked into this, I was kind of, I guess, shocked to see how recent all of this stuff really is. So, we had the first clickable web banner appeared in 1994. Then moving on to the launch of Google Ads just in 2000, which obviously meant a huge shift in how we utilize digital to promote products and services. And then the 2000s didn't stop there. So we had the launch of key social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. And then moving into more recent years, we've seen a real surge in kind of video style content, which, yeah, definitely people are loving TikTok. And then brands are able to promote their products and services in so many different ways now. And that is to continuing to develop into the future with things like AI. I think we all know about AI. And then AR and things like that starting to appear as well.
And print marketing. So print's everywhere. I think sometimes we actually forget about all the different tools that are available to us when it comes to print. But it's not just the stuffy old flyer and brochure anymore. I think it's really important to talk about how creative we can be now with print. The different finishes that we have available, the different styles that we have available that can create those real wow moments for customers. But also think about some of the things that we take for granted. Packaging, for example, it is print, but it's one of the most powerful tools a marketeer has, not only to stand out on the shelf in a retail environment, perhaps, but also to inform and to delight our customers. So some of those print tools that we've considered over the years have often been taken for granted and forgotten about. Moving on to the story of print, so to speak. I'm not going to give you a history lesson now, but print is as old as you think it may be. So starting back in the 1400s was the first time that the printing press was used. But what I want to talk about here really is the fact that print has been around for a long time, but it continues to evolve. And I think one of the most important parts of that evolution really has been that digital print evolution in the 1980s and 1990s. And when digital print came into play, it meant that no longer did we have to consider print to be something that was limited for just mass marketing, where we had to do really, really long print runs. But digital print now enables us to print millions of ones. And what do I mean by millions of ones? Well, it means that we can now print unique personalized documents with variable content at the touch of a button. So just like digital, print can achieve all those personalized elements as well. And I think it's really important that we consider how both of those elements, both digital and print, can mirror one another in the marketing process.
Absolutely. Thanks, Helen. So yeah, really kind of, I guess, carrying on from what Helen was just saying there about the combination of these elements, how does combining them, make things more effective? So there's many different elements that go into digital and print. If we look at some of the key benefits of both, and we take digital, for instance, we know that it can be easily done at scale, usually within quick timeframes, famous last words, and you can continue to tweak as you learn from real-time results. And then if we look at print, on the other hand, we know that it benefits from being tangible, memorable, which can lead to increased trust and credibility. And is also in a very kind of something that Helen touched on earlier, very digitally saturated arena. Print can often be used to kind of break through that noise in a different way. But when you put those things together, we've got maximized engagement, stronger brand building, and the thing that we love, multi-channel reinforcement. So you're talking to your customers at many different touch points on their journey, which is a win-win. I wanted to talk a little bit more around the tangible element because I just think that's quite interesting. So I'm going to bring up, hopefully it loads, yes, a video. This is a brand, Billy, who are kind of a beauty brand, did something quite creative recently with a billboard campaign in which you could physically go up, scratch it and sniff it to smell the scent. So that's a whole new world of kind of experiential marketing that people are tapping into now. And that's really playing with that emotional element of it being tangible. And then also the fact that because it's quite, a unique thing that they've done there, it's then also being shared through social. So you're getting both touch points of digital and print kind of working together in quite a unique way. And what does that mean for people psychologically? Tangible stuff, it's tactile, experiences drive emotional responses. It's memory retention improves with print, higher trust in physical media, and that multi-sensory stimulation enhances loyalty. Helen and I were catching up around kind of, everyone remembers getting those Christmas cards when they're younger, and that type of emotion can reinform memories, wasn't it, Helen? That's what we were saying.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
Can I just jump in here? Because firstly, that scratch and sniff is incredible. I'd never seen
And
that.
a little bit revolting, I think.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
know. I
sorry,
want to
everyone.
climb one now just to like have a scratch off. But Steph, you'll remember this, and it's an example of how the tangible and print and digital can really build not just like companies' brands, but personal brands as well. So we have somebody working for us called Prue, and when she sent through her application to work with us, she sent through the normal stuff online, the CV and everything like that. She also personally had printed a milk carton with a picture of her on the front as the missing person and all her credentials on the back. And it struck something in us. We did not forget that woman. She's now been working with us for maybe 8 months and she's incredible. But I think her CV wouldn't have put across her creativity and all that kind of stuff. And it would, like, I only just thought of it when you were talking about the tangible stuff, so we didn't get it into the deck, but I thought it was good to bring up. Like, you can get that with print that you can't get with digital.
Absolutely,
and similarly,
absolutely.
I used to work in the office products arena, and I had a particular client who used to say that their strapline that was they could convince someone to switch to them as a supplier in the time it took to boil an egg. So they used to send a piece of direct mail, and alongside it, they also used to send an egg timer. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. There's something, really emotive about something that, can be quite playful and quite interesting and a bit quirky, which again, it is really difficult to get across when it comes to digital.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel the same, does it? And I think it's what you were saying at the start, Helen. We crave that now. We crave that kind of old school stuff, but in a new way. So
Absolutely.
sorry, Steph, I
Definitely.
butted in.
No, it's all good. You'll have to ignore the S in the corner. That's a mistake. That should be there. That's where I was planning out what slides we were doing. So yeah, 57% of the people say they feel more valued when they receive a personalized printed communication alongside digital touchpoints. And I think that's a key thing there is that word alongside. We're not saying that one of them should work in silo, but actually combining them together, they complement each other and enhance kind of what we're trying to do and achieve. Over to you,
So
Helen.
yeah, I guess, we've talked quite a lot about the benefits of combining, or the benefits of print and the benefits of digital. So what does it look like when we combine? Well, let's discuss some of those key metrics. Yeah. Higher response rates. So when I talk about higher response rates, direct mail primes respondents to respond to social media. A recent survey by the Royal Mail indicated that those who saw some direct mail first spent 30% longer engaging with social media. So that's a really, really strong metric in terms of using print to drive engagement with your social activity. Improve conversion quality. We all want customers to react to that call to action, don't we? Well, 30% of mail addressed to a recipient results in an action. So that could be a visit to a store, it could be a visit to a website, it could be making a phone call, or just simply conducting further research. But we can see here with these metrics that it's actually driving that action to drive people to your digital channels. Stronger trust, we've talked about this a little bit already. But in a world where we're bombarded with fake news, people are so untrustworthy of brands these days. We hear so many stories about brands not necessarily doing what they say we want to do. They do. We want to be trusted as brands. And Mail can do that for us. 80% of respondents to a Royal Mail survey describe Mail as being believable and it being the second most trusted source or trusted channel after search. Now, that may change. It may even improve as we look at AI as a search mechanism now. So things are changing there. Broader audience reach. By using both digital and print, we can reach those who are turning away from digital channels. You know, and there are demographics who don't use digital at all, find it really difficult to use digital for one reason or another. So we know by using both print and digital, we can reach a far wider audience. And then finally, multi-channel touch points. I know Steph will share some stats with you shortly about how many touch points are typically needed before a potential customer takes action. But by integrating print, we know we have another touch point. And to go back to Bex's statement earlier, that's in fact tangible, believable, and trustworthy.
Amazing. Thank you, Helen. Oh, skipped one there. So yeah, Helen's done a great job there of kind of talking us through those bits anyway, but we thought it'd be great to kind of tap into those a little bit more and just build an understanding around what we mean for those things. So if we're looking at specifically higher response rates, we know by combining digital and print, we'll get higher response rates. For example, a customer might receive an email and then get a printed piece of mail that reinforces that message, making it easier for them to act on the information and start to feel more valued, therefore leading to a higher response. And then moving on to improved conversion quality. So when we're combining print and digital, it doesn't just mean we're generating more leads, but using those various touch points means you're really taking a customer on a journey. So receiving physical mail means customers build a sense of trust, something we've spoken about a lot, making people more likely to follow through to converting through digital channels.
So yeah, we're going to go back on that trust thing again, because I wanted to talk about a couple of examples, really. I mentioned earlier that printed marketing is more trustworthy because it's real. You feel it, you see it, you can touch it. I heard a quote recently from an individual called Tim Lindsay. He's CEO of D&AD, and he said, I thought it was really interesting, you can't touch, feel, or smell pixels. And I think that's a really interesting quote when you put it into the context of that tangibility and that trust. There's something more trustworthy and emotive about physically picking something up. Yeah. And remember back in COVID, yeah, why do you think the government supplemented their TV broadcasts and their online information with a letter to every household in the UK? Simply one thing, trust. Yeah, it was felt that in a time when there was uncertainty and confusion, a physical letter would be seen to be more believable and more trustworthy than solely digital media. And I think that's true today as it's ever been.
Yeah, so it's like there'll always be a need for that, right, Helen? You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, exactly. Broader audience reach. So we all know the types of people we're trying to target, and these different audiences, you know, interact in different ways. So as well as we may have different ways we like to receive information from brands, therefore tapping into that multiple channel and lines of communication allows you to connect to multiple segments for your target audience and regardless of their preferences. So we are, you know, with all that being said, reaching a broader audience through different multi-channel touch points. Then multi-channel touch points. Oh, it moved. There we go. So yeah, something we talk about a lot in marketing. We're reinforcing those key messages through the customer journey. And it's definitely a case of trial and error. That's, you know, like with anything in marketing, we need to monitor how it performs and then shift how we do things. But I think it's really striking a balance of, you know, not bombarding people through these touch points. So you really have to be thinking about quality over quantity, but it's certainly something that people should be thinking about in their strategies. We've got a whole host of tactics out there, social, email, print, that we could be tapping into to talk to people and reinforce those messages.
So hopefully we've got you thinking about the benefits of integrating print and digital. But I guess the big question is, how do we do that? Is there really an art to blending digital and print strategies? Well, put very, very simply, it doesn't need to be complicated. Consider it to be just another channel. So just the way that you consider when's right to use search, when's right to use social or email, just consider print to be another channel. Print has its place in the same way as all your other channels. But there are 3 principles of combining those strategies. The first one is very much about using each medium for its strengths. Yeah. Make sure you're considering when is the best time to plan each channel. When is the best time to use each channel? It may not be that the right time to send out digital marketing is right at the beginning of, send out print marketing right at the beginning of your campaign if you're looking to communicate to thousands of potential customers. It may be more appropriate when you're actually at conversion stage, when you have fewer customers to talk to and you have more insight about those customers. You have more detail about when they're going to purchase and how they're going to purchase. And finally, consistency across each channel. You wouldn't expect to go into Sainsbury's and see your point of sale and posters looking completely different to what the Sainsbury's website looks like. And that's really important for all of us. Whatever channel you're using, whether it be offline or online, your messaging, your language, your aesthetic, all needs to be consistent so that customer journey is seamless regardless of channel.
I think that's really important, Helen, because we do a lot of kind of rebrands and for website builds here. And something we always say to them is, have you thought about everything else? Because it's so jarring when you think you're buying from one company and you go into the store or you get some mail from them and there's just a disconnect there. So really important, I think, especially if you're doing rebranding or you're thinking about changing up your digital marketing, you need to be thinking about that print as well.
And I think it's increasingly important as we all as marketeers use AI to generate our content, or at least to start to support to generate our content. I'm very much an advocate of using AI to support the human touch, shall we say, not to replace the human touch. But I think it's increasingly important if you have multiple people on your team using AI to create content, whether that be online or offline, we need to ensure that that content has that brand voice, that tone of voice, and that messaging that's consistent throughout. And I think that is a challenge for us as marketeers today and will increasingly be prevalent as we increasingly use AI.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Definitely. So looking a little bit more at the tactics to blend both these elements together. So we've got personalized direct mail, linked to digital action. So it's taking data-driven marketing to allow brands to personalize printed materials. And this is something we'll talk about a little bit more later on as well. So this could be personalized through QR codes, and then it's sending specific messages that people can align with through that data. Print triggered digital journeys. So printed mail piece can prompt a recipient to visit a website, download an app, sign up for an event, or claim for an offer online. Digital data feeding specifically into print campaigns is something that Helen will know a lot about from what Precision Proco are doing. So it's, using CRMs and customer behavior data, people opening emails, visiting websites to trigger highly targeted, personalized print campaigns. And I think that's the key thing there, is
Like
highly
that.
targeted.
Like that.
Might need to mute someone there. Cool. So yeah, it's very personalized. It's very targeted. So we're speaking direct messages to people at the right time with the right message. Omni-channel campaign. So again, that multi-channel touch point. Schedule campaigns where audiences receive a sequence. So going back to that need to reinforce the message until conversion. Helen.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So, so why blending works better than using one channel? And I think this is a repetition really of what we've already talked about. It increases touch points, yeah? Consumers need 5 to 7 interactions before they remember or act. But if I take you right back to some of those stats I shared at the beginning, they are more likely to react to your digital touch points if they've already received some tangible print touch points as well. So integrated strategies can create a more effective layered program of activities. It combines immediate and lasting impact. So mail will stay in the home. If you send out direct mail, will stay in the home for up to 7 days and will be touched by between 3 and 4 people in an average household. So that's a really, really powerful metric or powerful stat when we think about how quickly digital marketing can be removed or deleted or forgotten. So if we can imagine that combination of the powerful reaction to an email followed by or even precursored by a direct mail piece, that can be really, really strong. And it enhances emotional and rational appeal. We've talked about trust so many times, and I think that's so very, very important to us as brands and as organizations, that people trust us and want to engage with us and believe the marketing stories and marketing messages that we're telling them.
Thank you, Helen. So moving on to some examples. So kicking off with TUI, a household brand, I think that everyone would recognise. They launched a campaign, Live Happy campaign, back in 2021. And the aim of this really is to reposition themselves. This all was off the back of COVID, actually. So obviously a lot changed for many brands during COVID, but specifically the travel sector, as you could imagine. So really it was about, just taking them from just being a travel operator to a broader lifestyle, happiness focused travel brand. So I've got a couple of images here of, I guess, how they've done that, one of which would have been a digital part of that campaign, and the other one presenting in kind of, a real kind of environmental space. So we got it there by the escalators. But yeah, they would have done this across multiple channels using multiple kind of tactics. But we start to look at how they did that. So we've got print elements, we've got magazine ads, newspaper inserts. They would have used billboards, as you've just seen there. Digital elements would have been through TV, online video ads, social media campaigns, email marketing. And then again, kind of going back to what Bex was mentioning earlier around, updating stuff on your actual website, they would have made changes to the website to then align with that kind of update in the branding. So it's a solid example of how integrating, both traditional print and modern digital strategies can strengthen the results. And then looking kind of a bit more actually at the highlights from what they achieved from doing this. So it's TUI's first major campaign since appointing their creative agency, the new creative agency they're working with. And the plan was to relaunch the brand post-pandemic, which I mentioned earlier, as we'd seen a huge shift in that kind of space, especially within the travel sector. So the campaign led to stronger brand recall and embedding the new positioning. And this was successfully received through social and through the press. They saw huge levels of engagement through social media, including 25 plus million video views across platforms. And although they didn't release the exact conversion rates, they have reported seeing a huge increase in bookings following the launch of the campaign. So a huge success for the brand. Pop this one in here, although it doesn't relate specifically to that brand, but I just thought it was really interesting how, talking about print and, something we would all imagine with kind of holiday and that experience of going into like a holiday agent and you look at brochures and things like that, that TUI at one point were considering actually scrapping and phasing out their brochures, but through doing customer research, they actually understood from customers that it was still really important for them to have those and they found them really useful. So I think the key thing there is actually, every customer is going to be different depending on what sectors you're working in and who you're trying to target, but it's really understanding your customer and what works for them with these touch points and whether that's digital or printed.
And I'm a great fan of TUI simply because of that. And I'll never go into an IKEA again after they cancelled their catalogue. I think it's really interesting. There's so many brands now that are looking at reintroducing their catalogues. you know, and I'll talk a little bit about someone who's not just reintroduced, but actually has started to create a catalogue. So it's great to see that these brands are now really starting to think about print as a really valuable tool to them. I feel like we're talking about huge brands with huge budgets here, guys, but believe me, this is just to really inspire you and give you a little bit of food for thought. Print doesn't have to, you know, it doesn't really require significant budgets. It requires clever budgeting, just like we all have to as marketeers. But I did want to mention a couple of brands. Amazon. So I guess from my perspective, if the world's largest e-commerce business is using print, if it's good enough for them, well, guys, it's good enough for us, isn't it? So Amazon is a really, really interesting story here. As you all know, Amazon online only business. But a couple of years ago, they decided to introduce a catalogue at Christmas for toys. Which I thought was really interesting. So it was a 68-page catalogue. It had QR codes on all the products, but it achieved two things. One thing, the children loved doing what I know I did when I was a child with the Argos catalogue. I sat there with a big marker pen that my mum gave me and I circled every toy that I wanted. So the kids loved it. They loved that tangible thing of being able to flick through that catalogue and circle what they wanted Santa Claus to bring them. And the parents loved it because literally with the click of a button, scanning over a QR code, the ease of purchase. You know, there was no sticky points on this. The child got the excitement, the tangible nature of print, and the parent got the speed of e-commerce. And I think that's a fabulous story about how print can integrate all those different needs and requirements. I wanted to talk about a couple of others. The first one is Jaguar, and this is a real premium mailing, but it just shows you how print and digital have moved on to work seamlessly together. So Jaguar were launching the new Evoque, high value car, premium mailing gets sent to all their existing clients. And on that particular piece of mailing was a button. And if the customer was interested in a test drive, they could press the button, which looked like the on-off button of the actual Evoque. And when they pressed that button, what it did, because it was an existing customer and the data was already there in the background, when they pressed that button, it triggered an email to that customer saying, thank you for showing interest in your test drive. Someone from the dealership will be in touch shortly. It also triggered an alert to the dealership that allowed them to make a phone call to that customer to arrange that test drive. And I think that is a beautiful combination of digital and technology and print working together. Again, it's all about seamless interaction with the customer. Finally, Vets for Pets, which was a brand that we as a business have been working with. Pets due for vaccination. Vets for Pets were struggling to get the response rate they required to their previous email-only communications, encouraging owners of pets to get their pets vaccinated. So what they did is they incorporated within their email marketing campaign, they incorporated specific and timely letters to be sent to those vets' parents, shall we say, at specific times. And their response rate increased to 70% during that time when they sent those mailings out. And I think that's a really, really good example of the power of print supplementing the power of email during a customer journey. So just three, not necessarily all expensive, but just three examples of how print, digital, and technology can be combined.
Definitely. And I think as well, Helen, what this shows, doesn't it, is like how innovative people are being now. So as you know, time goes on, people are just thinking super creatively about how they can have those touch points. So yeah, it's definitely something that we want to be incorporating in our strategy is, you know, let's think outside the box. What can we do to speak to our customers to keep it interesting? Fab. So looking now at how we can use data and analytics to inform decisions, you know, around kind of what we want to do within our strategies. when we say connecting the data dots, what do we mean? So modern marketing thrives on data-informed decisions, not just for digital channels, but print as well. So Helen's been kind of mentioning some of this along the way, but being able to leverage insights from digital touchpoints means that you're able to personalize print efforts, something that we've been talking about a lot through this. So once again, showing how having print and digital work together fuels smarter campaigns. Is there anything else you wanted to add around that, Helen?
No, I think we're going to come on shortly to the bit about marketers fearing that we can't track print, and I'll share with people in a second just how we can.
Perfect. So yes, how digital data informs print strategies. So website behaviors, which can be used as triggers for targeted direct mail follow-ups, or taking email engagement data to identify, who's been responsive and what messaging has actually worked. And then lastly, using CRM systems, so the likes of like HubSpot and purchase history data to really personalize our efforts and make sure it's tailored to our audience with the right message to promote our services and products.
So, as I said, I think as marketeers, we often fear that we can't track print, that it gets sent out, whether that be a brochure, whether that be a flyer, whether it be a book of coupon codes, and it gets lost. And we don't actually know what's happening with it. Well, we've come a long way as an industry in terms of integrating links, QR codes, URLs, which allow us to feed data back into our digital analytics tools. So by combining our print with direct traceable call to actions, we can track the success of direct mail and other print tools. I think it's really important to understand that it doesn't sit on its own. It sits alongside our digital channels, and therefore we can track it in exactly the same way as we can track our emails. And I wanted to share with you, if you just want to move on to the next slide, Steph, I wanted to share with you a way in which we work at Precision Proco with clients on our home movers campaign, as we call it. And this is a great example of using data that comes out of a customer's website or CRM system and is used to drive the right message to the right people at the right time by using print. So a great example, as I say, is the home mover market. It's a hugely lucrative market. Home movers are said to spend up to £12 billion a year in the UK on products outside of the actual purchase of a property. And by working with relevant retailers, we are able to look at their data and understand what products sell at what time in the home mover journey. For example, we worked with a particular client and were able to establish, looking at their data, that, for example, sofas and beds were purchased up to 6 weeks prior to move date. So we combine that data with data that we got with one of our data partners to enable us to look at those properties that are on the market, and 6 weeks prior to that move date, we're able to send targeted direct mail communications to the occupier of that home selling beds and sofas, which is landing the exact right message at the right time to the right people. And that's a beautiful example of using data that's coming out of a CRM system combined with market-led data to drive targeted communications. And the interesting thing about home movers and why I talk about it is the data that's available out in the market is all about the property. It's not about the individual within that property. And for that reason, digital just won't work. We can't send them email marketing at that stage in the journey. However, when we send those initial communications, if we get responses using a QR code, using the links on the DMPs, we can gather more information about our customer to enable us to engage in digital communications as well. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you. Perfect. So, taking all of that into account, we also wanted to touch on some future trends, or certainly trends that maybe already are existing, but are emerging more and more through digital and print. So looking at as something we've been discussing quite a lot, is this personalization element. We're really passionate that this is something that will continue to develop and brands will use it more and more, because it is, as Helen's been talking about, it's that real targeted message to the right people at the right time. And it's using, as AI develops even more and more, there'll be advances in how we can even do that further. But at the moment, it's already showing huge success in utilizing that. I mean, Helen, Precision Proco are already doing this at scale with brands. Do you feel like you've seen a shift in that over time already?
I think, to be honest, personalization is now becoming the norm. I think consumers actually expect their communications, whether it be digital, whether it be print, to be personalized. But it's no longer good enough that it says, "Dear Helen Smith." That's now, that's the expected. If it didn't say "Dear Helen Smith," I probably wouldn't open it. Yeah. What we're talking about now in terms of personalization is brands understanding my interests, my requirements, and my journey to buy a particular product. And I want to be spoken to at exactly the right time. So that integration between our digital data and our digital communications and print has never been more important. I'm certainly seeing brands spend more and more time on data analytics to enable them to be even more specific in terms of their personalization. So Steph, for example, I like pink tops, you like cream tops. We can receive exactly the same communication, but the picture on that communication is someone in a pink top for me and someone in a cream top for you. The level of personalization that's enabled by a print these days is far more sophisticated than it ever has been. And I see more and more brands taking advantage of that.
Fabulous. Thanks, Helen. Skipping along. It wouldn't be a future trends presentation without a section on AI. Obviously, we all know about AI. It's something that we're using more and more through our strategies, and whether that's inspiration through content, image generation, there's many different elements to AI. It's using machine learning to automate segmentation and content selection. So predicting customer behaviors, as Helen was just mentioning there, like our different desires and what we like, and kind of tapping into those and speaking to customers about those because they drive more emotion. And optimizing print frequencies and all of this sort of stuff actually leads into a bit of a wider conversation around sustainability and making print and digital work together more effectively, so that we can cut down on things like waste and things like that, is also really important. And then lastly, augmented reality. So something that's probably a bit newer, well, definitely is a bit newer, but it's certainly something we're seeing more of. And that kind of, if we think back to, whilst it's not augmented reality, but what Billy did with that campaign with the deodorant, people are really responding well to more interactive, kind of immersive experiences. So, I know personally, I'm really excited to see how this kind of stuff develops. It's very interesting, and kind of really seeing what boundaries people will push with the creativity of their marketing strategies. Is there anything that you wanted to add on those bits, Helen?
Don't know if anybody remembers the Argos catalogue a couple of years ago, and this was really a first introduction to using augmented reality. So Argos a couple of years ago on a short range catalogue, you could download an app and you could hover over the image of a product and it provided you with a lot more information. So basically it provided you with a little video demo of some of the products. It showed you up-to-date information. It was more than just a QR code. And I think this was the first step into augmented reality. There is so much more that's achievable now. I too, as you say, Steph, I'm really excited to see where this goes, particularly because from my perspective, from a print lover's perspective, so many of these things are only possible by having that tangible piece of print in the first place from which to launch these augmented reality tools.
Brilliant. Thank you, Helen. So this brings us towards the end of our presentation, but we just wanted to do a bit of a roundup really on the key takeaways of what we've learnt. So bringing print and digital together is what we're seeing is a stronger way of doing things. You're boosting engagement, trust, and lead generation through combining those tactics, using data to drive relevance. So digital insights can really help us personalize and to optimize print for better results and really get those, you know, specific messages out to the right people at the right time. Print is now measurable, woohoo! So we can really look at how things are doing, and you know that feeds into all of the kind of performance metrics we're looking at across the board, not just digital. So that will really help us, you know, track our campaigns more, what's working, what's not, pivot, and yeah, get the most out of what we're doing. And then finally, tech is transforming print. So we've got AI, AR, and sustainable practices are reshaping customer experiences. And I know something else that Helen and I were talking about is, you know, people might not be using print yet in their strategies. You might be, but you might not. But it's just, you know, it's not that complex. It's not that different. That's something you were talking about, Helen, wasn't it? You wanted to kind of
Yeah, I think we often get ourselves wrapped up in knots thinking that it needs to be really complex, and it absolutely doesn't. We also often think that it needs to be really expensive, and it really doesn't. It's just like when we think about our paid digital activities, you know, it's about managing budget. Of course it is. It's about thinking about the right way to spend our budget. But certainly it's not complicated. And I keep saying this, it's just another channel, and one that I don't think we should be scared of. I think, you know, we really all need to fall in love with print again. That would be my takeaway message.
Thank you, Helen. And then that leads us on to questions. Bex, have you got any questions lined up?
Firstly, thank you both. That was amazing. I'm with you, Helen. I've always had a love of print. I worked in print before I worked in digital, and it's so amazing to see some of these things that were just developing when I left print now coming back, and the tech's making it happen. And that combination of print and digital is going to be so powerful again. It was powerful in the other way back in the early 2000s, and now we've just got extra stuff that we can bring in. So I love that. Thank you both for that. Ewan, I think you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
I did. No, I was just, I guess, applauding. Great presentation.
Thank you. We'll take that.
We will take that, definitely. If there's no questions from the room, I can't see any hands up at the minute. I've had a couple that have come through just privately to me on a chat. One for you probably, Helen. Steph, well, you both mentioned sustainability a couple of times there, but print's obviously been seen as wasteful in the past. So the question is that this business is really focused on sustainability. So how can people ensure that they're complying to that if they're going to use print?
Okay, it's the elephant in the room. It's often an elephant in the room that print isn't a sustainable means of communication. I think there's two ways that we can look at this. Firstly, from a carbon footprint perspective, and everything we do has a carbon footprint. And sure, print has a carbon footprint. So does the humble email, quite frankly. So I think for me, when we look at our carbon footprint, it's actually about balancing the carbon footprint across our entire marketing mix. I think that's the first thing that we need to talk about. And interestingly, from a waste perspective, my view would be that it's only wasteful if it's not targeting the right person at the right time with the right message. Yeah. So the days are gone where a marketeer would send out mass communication to absolutely anybody, you know, the whole spray and pray scenario, which I would agree is wasteful. It's a waste of resource. It's a waste of money for a marketeer, and it isn't the most sustainable way for us to approach our marketing. But I would argue on the other side, if it's reaching the right person, if it's reaching the right person with the right message at the right time, and you're getting the return on investment that you need, then it's anything other than wasteful. Print uses paper. That's a circular economy, so to speak. You know, we can replant trees. So it is actually one of the most sustainable forms of communication. And for those of us who are worried about, you know, chopping down trees and all those kind of messages, you know, let's bust a myth there. We are not, you know, the European forests, for example, are growing. Yeah, so in the years 2005 to 2020, European forests actually grew by 58,000 square kilometers. You know, that's 1,500 football pitches. So, you know, we aren't destroying the planet here. We are replanting. Our industry is very pro sustainability. Precision Proco particularly, we spend a lot of time and effort on our sustainability credentials. So I think it's important for us to balance our impact on the environment, and it's also important for us to consider that all our activities, whether that's driving into work today or whether that's making a cup of tea with the electricity from a kettle, has a carbon footprint. And I think it's our responsibility of marketeers to consider all elements of our carbon footprint.
Definitely.
That was a long answer to a very short question, Bex, wasn't it?
And I wanted to add to that as well. You mentioned there about, you know, taking all of the things encompassing, you know, unfortunately, everything we do in the world probably has an impact on sustainability. But, you know, I think it's as long as we're looking at it and, you know, considering things and, you know, cleansing data and things like that that can make it more effective. Even with AI, you know, using ChatGPT, if you're putting in the wrong prompts, you know, it has a carbon impact. So, you know, both print and digital, there's ways in which we can use those elements in the right way so that we're impacting less. But unfortunately, there's always going to be impacts. But yes, yeah, I just wanted to add that in there because I just think it's interesting. It's not just print, you know, AI utilizes carbon as well. So yeah, just thought it would be good worth mentioning.
Thank you both. Yeah, I think you're both right. You know, it's about balance, isn't it? It's about deciding how you're going to be wasteful, because we all are at some point, how we're going to do that. And yes, Helen, it was a very long answer. I feel like you've maybe been asked that question before, but no.
The other part of my job is sustainability as well as marketing. So I didn't tell you that at the beginning.
That's good. That's good. I've just had one more question come through as well while you were talking. Somebody didn't want to talk in the room, but something else you both mentioned is AI, and this again, sorry Helen, is for you. But we all know how digital uses AI at the minute. How's print embracing that, and how's print using AI?
Okay, well, in multiple ways, you know, right from production. So from a production perspective, looking at how we schedule work to ensure that we're printing product on behalf of our customers at the right time. So it's supporting us in terms of scheduling. It's supporting us in terms of ensuring the accuracy of data or the accuracy of information that comes through to us. So we receive files from our customers. We have to check those and ensure they're ready for press, they're print ready. So AI can support us ensuring the accuracy of that data to ensure that we therefore print at the highest quality. AI is helping us in terms of how we manage the content alongside our customers that goes into our publications or our printed materials that we're working on. So we don't just print for our customers, we support them. And I mentioned earlier the Home Movers campaign, we support them in terms of the data for specific campaigns. So AI is helping us in terms of that integration and that insight. So there are lots of ways in which AI is helping develop the print industry, so to speak.
Lovely. And I guess that use of AI to get all that data, that then helps on the sustainability thing as well, right?
Totally. Yeah, because as Steph was saying, you know, we're less wasteful because we know we're sending communications to the right people. So actually, very few printers would want me saying this, but I actually want customers to print less, because what I want them to do is I want them to print less, but I want them to print and send to the right people to get the best return. So they print again and again and again. So it's a bit counterintuitive, but if we use AI correctly to manage our data, we'll actually be printing on demand. We won't be printing en masse.
Perfect. Love that. Cool. If there's no other questions from the room, I'm going to wrap it up there. Steph has very helpfully put all of our contact details on the screen, but you will be getting this sent out to you as well, so you can use your QR codes and things there. And yeah, unless Helen and Steph have anything else to say, I'd like to thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.